welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all guys doing well today. So in today's lesson we are going to create a full functional login page by just using SwiftUI. Okay, so in this lesson we will compose a more complex UI and implement features such as a text field and button, and get to know the basic data flow concepts of SwiftUI. Okay, cool. So let's start with creating a new project for our app. Open Xcode, okay, and create a new Xcode project. Then select single view app, okay, as usual, just right there, and click on next, okay. Give the project a suitable name, just like login page, okay. Then click on create, on next. So we want to display the user profile image in the app, so let's import a sample image into the assets folder. So here you're going to import this image, okay, just like that. Make sure you name the file appropriately, okay. So here we're going to call it user image. Cool. Okay, so we will also use a certain gray color multiple times. So before starting with creating the UI, we are going to create this color. So let light gray color to be equal to a color, okay. So we are going to select this one. Yes, this one, okay. So the first value is 239.0 over 255.0, then 243.0 over 255.0, and finally 244.0 over 255.0. Cool. And now we can start creating the UI, okay. So let's start creating the interface of our login page, okay. As you saw with the simulator, all elements are aligned vertically. So let's delete the sample text object and insert a vstack instead, okay. So here vstack, just like that, okay. Let's start with the hello you string, okay, this one. For this, just insert a text object containing a hello you string, okay. So here text hello you, okay. We also apply some modifiers to it, including a padding modifier for extending the space between the text and the image below it, which we will create in a moment, okay. So here you can say large title, okay, then font weight semi bold, and finally padding this one, okay, dot bottom, and here 20, just like that, okay. Cool. And now if we press on resume, normally we should see the text displayed on the screen, okay. Cool. So as you can see, it works properly, okay. So now to outsource the created text view, command click on the text object here and select extract subview. Let's name this view hello text, just like that, okay. Press enter. Under our hello text place an image object. Okay, here image user image. Okay, just like that. Okay, the image should display the profile image of the user. To do this, enter the name of the image which we imported into the asset folder earlier. Okay, we also add some modifiers for scaling the image and making it round. Okay, again, we also want a bottom padding. Okay, so here first we're going to call resizable. Okay, then aspect ratio will be dot fill, just like that. Then frame will be 150 and 150, just like that. We don't need the alignment for the moment. Okay, then we're going to clip it, then give it a corner radius value of 150. Okay, and finally a padding, so here bottom and here 75. Okay, cool. Just like that. So we are going to outsource this view as well. Okay, just like that, and call it user image, just like that. Press enter. So now comes the first one of our two text fields. The text field enables the user to write down their credentials in order to log in. Okay, to create the first one, insert a text field object into our content views body. Okay, here text field. Okay, this one. For now, we need two parameters for our text field, the text binding and the title parameter, which provides us with a placeholder when the text field is empty. Okay, so creating a text field without fitting the necessary parameters causes errors. We will get rid of these in a moment. Okay, but first of all, let's talk about these parameters. The second parameter accepts a binding. So what does that mean? Okay, in a nutshell, SwiftUI needs a property which it can use to store the information that the user enters. This property then processes the information and displays it again to the user. Okay, so let's create such a property by declaring a variable above our content views body called username. Okay, so here var username to be type of string with an empty value at the beginning. Okay, so let's create this variable which accepts a string. By default, when the user doesn't have anything entered, this variable should contain an empty string. Okay, but currently this property is only able to read and store the information which an object such as the created text field passes to it, but it must also be able to automatically render our view depending on its stored content. Okay, to do this, mark the variable as at state, just like that. Okay, a state property is connected to the view. A state property is permanently being read by the view. Okay, that means that every time the state property gets changed or updated, the view gets re-rendered and eventually displays the content depending on the state's data. Okay, to make this more clear, take a look at our text field example. Okay, the text field is connected to the username state, okay, property, which contains an empty string as default. When the user enters a character, for example the letter X, this character is passed to the state property that is connected to the text view. Okay, because the state gets updated from an empty string to a string X, it automatically triggers re-rendering the view. Okay, the text field then updates itself by reading out the content of the state property, which is now the string X, and displays it to the user. This is how the user eventually sees what he has entered. Okay, so every time the state gets updated, it causes the view to re-render. Every time the view re-renders, the state's content gets read. Okay, cool. So back to our text view. Since we created an appropriate state property, we can bind it to our text field. Okay, to bind objects to state property, we have to insert the property's name with a $sign, just like that. Okay, when the text field is empty, because the string of the state is empty like it is at default, we don't want the text field to display nothing. Instead, we want to display a placeholder. So here we can do this by passing a text object as the text argument. We can then delete the parameter's name. Okay, so here simply write username. Cool. So the text field itself doesn't have any border or background by default. To change this, we have to add some modifiers to it. Okay, we also add a padding modifier again for extending the space between this text field and the one we will create in a moment. Okay, so here padding background light gray color. Okay, here corner radius 5.0, and here padding dot bottom, and here 20. Okay, cool. Great, we are finished with setting up our first text view. Okay, outsourcing objects which are connected to a state is a little bit special, thus we will do this later. Okay, next we want a similar text field for the user password. We could use a normal text field object again, but we want to provide our login form with a little bit of privacy by changing the field's content to dots when the user enters his password. Okay, so doing this is really simple. Instead of inserting a text field object, we're going to insert an object called secure field. Okay, just like that. The secure field needs the same arguments as a text field. Okay, therefore we create another state property called password and bind it to the secure field. We also insert an appropriate placeholder for styling the secure field. Like the text field, just copy and paste the modifiers of the text field to the secure field. Okay, so here simply write password. Here we need to create another state property, so add state, it's like that. Password to be type of string. Okay, it's like that. Okay, and now we can copy paste those lines. Okay, cool. Then you just have to press on resume here. Normally try again is the same. Okay, fine, it works finally. So also add an overall padding modifier to the vstack itself for the fields not touching edge of the screen. Okay, so here dot padding, just like that. Cool. This is what your preview should look like now. Okay, so last but not least, let's insert the login button as described before. To create a button, we start with creating the content inside the button. This should be a text containing login. Okay, to modify the text style and insert a black background, apply the following modifiers to it. So here so text, just like that. Okay, login, and here we're going to give it some modifiers. The first one is font, headline, foreground color will be white. Okay, with the padding, frame will be 220 over and the height 60. The background color will be color dot black, and finally corner radius will be 35, just like that. Okay, cool. So next, outsource this text object and call it login button content. Here, command click and select extract subview, and we're going to call it login button content. Press enter. Okay, now we need to wrap the login button content with view into a button. Okay, the button needs to know what to do when the user taps it. For now, we just want to print something out for testing purposes. We will implement our authentication logic later in this tutorial. Okay, so here button, okay, this one, so press enter, print button tapped. Okay, so I think it's just like that. Yes, just like that. I can even write it like this. Okay, okay, and then write just like that. Okay, oh, only one parenthesis, and now we're good to go. Okay, so let's see where we are. To check out the full functionality, run the app in the real simulator. So here, okay, we can now use the text fields to type in the user credentials. Okay, just like that. For instance, okay, note how the password entered by the user gets invisible. Cool. So great, we accomplished a lot so far. We composed a complex UI containing a text field, a secure field, and a button. We also learned what states are and how the basics of data flow in SwiftUI. Now we will implement our app functionality, including user authentication and displaying different views depending on whether the authentication was successful or not. Now we're going to see how to create a binding between different views and how to show views dynamically. Okay, so as said before, outsourcing views that are bound to a state like our text fields is a little bit special. Okay, let's try out to outsource our username text field by command clicking on it and selecting extract subview. So here let's call it username text field. Okay, username text field, just like that. Okay, so as soon as we do that, we get an error saying use of unresolved identifier username. Okay, this is because when outsourcing a view, it gets wrapped into its own structure. Okay, but the username text field structure doesn't own such a property which can get bind to the text field object. To fix this, we need to insert an appropriate property into our outsourced username text field structure. But instead of creating a state property on its own, we want to instead have a property that derives its content from the username state of our content view in order to enable data flow between them. Okay, to do this, we declare a binding property. Okay, so add binding, just like that. That's also called username. Okay, above our username text field's body, and since we want to derive its content from the username state of the content view, we don't assign any data to it. Okay, so simply write its type. Okay, bindings are used for creating a data connection between a view, okay, here our outsourced username text field, and its source of data, here our username state. Okay, so to create the link between our content view and our username text field, we initialize the latter by passing the username state of our username text field into it. Okay, so here just like that. Okay, as we did the last time, we use the $sign syntax again for binding objects. Okay, now our outsourced username text field is connected to the username state of our content view. Okay, what happens now when the user enters something is that the entered character gets passed from the username text field to the username property of the outsourced view, which serves as a bridge and passes the data itself through the binding to the username state of the content view. Okay, so as learned before, the whole view gets then re-rendered. Okay, so the text field object reads the content of the username state of the content view via accessing the username binding of the username text field view and using it as a data bridge. So let's repeat this process for the secure field. Outsource the secure field by command clicking and on it and selecting extract subview. Okay, let's call it password secure field. Password secure field, just like that. Okay, insert a binding property without any content into the extracted password secure field. So here, okay, and here, cool. So link the outsourced password secure field to the state of the content view by initializing it inside the content view with binding the password state to it. Okay, just like that. Great, we finished outsourcing our text and secure fields. Let's go further with designing our view for failed and successful authentication. Okay, so let's start by handling in the case when the authentication process did fail. Okay, for this purpose we declare a state property of a boolean type and set its default value to false. So here var authentication did fail, we type a boolean is equal to false. Okay, when the state's value becomes true, that means that the authentication did fail. If this is the case, we want to insert a text object between the password secure field and the login button. Therefore, we write here if authentication did fail is true, okay, then text is equal to information not correct, try again. Okay, it's like that. So let's take a look at the preview simulator. Okay, where is our created text? Because we set the value of the authentication did fail state to false, we currently don't simulate the case that the authentication did fail. Let's change this here by true. Okay, now we are simulating a failed authentication and therefore see our inserted text object. Let's give it a red color and move it a little bit up. Okay, so here offset -10, just like that. Okay, just like that. Okay, and here foreground color will be red. Cool, perfect. We styled our view for failed authentication. Let's see the authentication did fail state to false again to simulate our default view. Okay, so here you're going to write again false. Let's repeat this workflow for a successful authentication. Again, we need to declare a state property for handling this case. Let's set it to true to simulate how the view should look if the login process succeeds. Okay, so here state var authentication did succeed. Okay, to be type of bool, just like that. Okay, if it succeeds, we want a text to pop out saying that the login did, but we don't want this text to be within the vstack but on top of it. So it's really straightforward to do that. Just wrap the vstack, okay, here itself into a z stack. All objects inside a z stack gets stacked on top of each other. Okay, so here I'm going to create a z stack just like that, and here cut and paste it just like that. Okay, so all objects inside the z stack get stacked on top of each other. Okay, so let's add a text object saying login succeeded to the z stack by inserting it below the v stack. So here, if authentication did succeeded, then text login succeeded. Just like that. Okay, you now see that the text is positioned on top of our vstack normally, just like that. Okay, so let's modify this text by styling the font and adding a green background. Okay, also add an animation modifier with a default animation. This modifier causes the text to pop up with a decent animation, as we will see later. Okay, so here font will be headline, frame will be 250, year 80, your background will be color dot green, corner radius 20, foreground color, or maybe we can leave it like this, change its color to yellow. I think it's better. Yeah, just like that. Okay, and animation dot default. So let's set the authentication did succeed state to false again for simulating our default case. Okay, so here great, we are done view designing our views that should depend on which state is currently active. Let's hop into implementing our code logic for toggling the states appropriately. So we just defined how our view should look depending on the different states. But how do we toggle the states? Pretty simple. When the user taps the login button, we need to compare the entered username and password with the stored credentials. Okay, so we haven't stored the correct password and username yet. So let's change this by inserting them below our light gray color constant. So here, let's stored username to be equal to Farouk, for instance. Okay, and the password, that password is equal to ABC. Okay, so if the entered information is correct, we want to set the authentication did succeed property to true, which then causes the view to re-render with showing the login succeeded text. Let's write this into the action parameter of our button. So here, button if self dot username is equal to stored username and self dot password is equal to stored password, oh sorry, here it's also stored. Okay, password, then self dot authentication did succeed is equal to true. Okay, okay, okay. So if the entered information is not the same as the stored one, we want to instead set the authentication did fail state to true. Okay, so here self.authentication did fail is equal to true. Okay, that's all. Let's try it out. Run your app in the normal simulator. Try to enter the wrong credentials and hit login. Okay, what happens now is that the code inside the action checks if the credentials are correct. Because that's not the case, it toggles the authentication did fail state to be true to view the view, therefore renders with showing the information not correct text. Okay, so here I can write Farouk just like that, A B C D E F. Okay, and you have information not correct, try again. Okay, so if you enter the right credentials, okay, so here Farouk for instance, and here ABC, okay, the authentication did succeed state gets toggled, which causes the view to show up the login succeeded text. Note how the text pops out with a smooth animation. Okay, this is the one we defined earlier by applying the animation modifier to the text object. Maybe you noticed that when first entering the wrong and then the right information, we see both the disclaimer that the entered information was wrong and the login succeeded text. Okay, but we don't want to see both. Instead, we want the disclaimer text to disappear when the login succeeded. We can simply implement this by updating our actions. So here self dot authentication did fail is equal to false. Okay, let's try again. So here if I write Farouk, okay, and here A B C D E F G, we get our error message. Okay, so now if I tap the correct password and username ABC, as you can see the error message disappears, and now we can only see the login succeeded one. Okay, and if I want to write a wrong username, we have both. So for that we can also do write is equal to false. Okay, and normally we are good to go. So here Farouk, with a wrong password. Okay, then if I write correctly ABC, okay, and now if I rewrite something wrong, perfect. As you can see, the design works perfectly. Okay guys, that's all for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a little bit long, but I think it's a good one for understanding many aspects of SwiftUI. Okay, and also give it a thumbs up, and I see you in the next lesson guys. Bye bye.